What if I told you that there's a really simple upgrade that you can do to your RV, takes hardly any time at all, that's going to give you less stress, more dependability, a higher quality product, less maintenance to do, and possibly higher fuel efficiency for your RV? That's what we're talking about today. So I know what you're probably thinking. Some guy's excited about something on YouTube. It must mean that it's a sponsored video. It's not sponsored. I have zero affiliation with the company that we're going to be talking about today, but we did visit a friend that did this upgrade to bore wheels. And if you haven't heard about bore wheels, there is a bunch of reasons why it's a good idea, an option to consider. We haven't made the upgrade because of kind of one negative drawback with it, but looking at all the information is really important to figuring out the benefits and the drawbacks to switching over to a wheel that's a 19.5 or 17.5 and bigger on your RV. Let me explain and dive into the benefits here. Now, I would say that the majority of people that switch over to bore wheels are doing it for one main reason. They want to eliminate or greatly reduce the chance, the risk of having a blowout. Number one, that's going to decrease the stress while you're driving, while you're towing. And number two, you're not going to have to go through the hassle of having a blowout on the RV. But let's compare that to the standard tires that we see on RVs. And how does that compare? What do you really gain from going with a bore wheel and a better tire? Now, our setup on our RV is really standard. So we have a 16-inch wheel. We have the Goodyear Endurance Load Range E tire on here. And you'll see in a lot of places and forums that this tire usually comes pretty highly recommended amongst other RVers. But when you switch over to bore wheels, it's going to completely change what you have on here. Starting off, is the rim is not going to be 16 inches. It's going to be typically the 19.5. So rather than having the 16-inch rim, it's now going to be a larger rim. And your tire's not only going to be not as tall of a sidewall, the big thing there is the entire construction and standards that it's built to completely change. It's like going from the minor leagues to the major leagues. It's completely different. So these higher standards are held for the tires that are going on a rim that is 17.5 inches and larger. And the reason why they go with a 19.5-inch rim is because usually that's a very standard tire that is out there for a lot of commercial applications. It's one of the top 5 sizes. So if you needed to get one while you're on the road, it's not going to be difficult to find. That's why they go with that size. Now, a tire that's going to be mounted on that 19.5-inch rim has to hold up to higher standards. It has to have 3 times the amount of brake force that this tire is going to be subjected to for the testing. It's going to have a higher grade rubber in that tire. It's just going to have a higher standard for the manufacturing process of that tire compared to this one here. Now, we're really just scratching the surface for the pros and the cons of the bore wheels here, but I do want to give a little RV reality checkpoint here because there's usually a big debate on, do I put truck tires on the RV? Do I put the Saloons? Do I do American made, like these Goodyear Endurance tires? What kind of tires? And the bore wheels is going to fit into this, but I just want to kind of touch base with the main points that people usually touch on. You should have all the maintenance that you do out there for any tire that you do get. You want to have the proper tire inflation. You don't want to be too old on the date code. You want to stay within the speed rating. You want to visually check them before on your trips, and you also want to monitor them as you're driving. There's kind of the core things that you need to do to have good tires and make sure that they're reliable for you when you're on the road. As far as the truck tires or trailer tires, we've run both. We had a reputable name brand truck tire that we did on our fifth wheel, and we wore through those things really fast. And on a trailer tire, you get a stiffer sidewall, which I prefer. Now, the bore wheels really blow this out for a stiffer sidewall, and we'll be talking more about that in a minute. But I would say that my preference, I like that these Goodyear Endurance tires are made in the US. I would say that the tires that I have liked the most were probably the Saloon tires that we had. They rode really well. They lasted a long time. They were just a great tire to be able to have on the RV. So I wouldn't hesitate putting Goodyear Endurance on again. I wouldn't hesitate doing the Saloons. But the bore wheels are a completely different category. It kind of blows the argument which tire to run out of the water for RVing. I mentioned that you have a stiffer sidewall on trailer tires than you do on truck tires, and the bore tires are going to be even more in that direction. I don't know if you've ever made a turn, you'll see the tandem axle trailer where you'll have one tire kind of going one way and one the other way as you're making that sharp turn. It looks pretty crazy inside of the suspension of the RV, but it's because those tires are gripping and trying to make that turn. But with a bore wheel, you're going to have way less flex inside of that tire. So my question was, is that going to harm the frame in any way? Where is that energy going and what is the problem? So I tried to find anybody that had a problem by switching over to bore wheels that had an issue with their frame because of that. And I honestly couldn't find a situation like that. Not saying that it doesn't exist, I just couldn't find any evidence to be able to back that up. So what I did find is that the bore wheels with that higher grade rubber and a stiffer, higher standard of construction is they actually scoot better on the ground as you're making that turn. So there's going to be less torque on there. I can't verify that completely. It's just what I found in digging into some of this. And with this stiffer wheel and this firmer wheel that's going to be going down the road, it's also going to translate some of the vibrations from the road into the trailer. Now, I haven't seen anybody that had any negative impact from doing this, but they did also recommend, when I did call Bore Wheels and I asked a couple of these questions, they said a lot of people will add a little bit of suspension onto the trailer when they do the upgrade. It's not necessarily mandatory, but it can't hurt to add a little suspension, a little cushion from what you might lose in the wheels bouncing down the road to a stiffer wheel to now you can have the suspension before that hits the frame. They mentioned something like this more ride suspension that we have on ours. It just gives that little bit of cushion to the frame from the wheels and the suspension of what's happening on the road to the frame of the RV. So even if you do bore wheels or not bore wheels, that's still not a bad option to add just a little bit of cushion for your RV. You could go all the way to independent suspension, but you're talking about a whole nother animal and it's going to be much more expensive. Great product, but very expensive to go that route. And while we're talking about upgrades, our wheels are a 6-lug wheel. And so when you look on Bore Wheels website, you see 8-lug wheels on there. They do make a 6-wheel lug version, and I guess it's not in stock right now, but they did say if you're going to do this upgrade to the Bore Wheels, it's not a bad idea to upgrade your hub to an 8-lug hub. So you can just put the 8-lug hub wheels, Bore Wheels on there without having to get the 6-lug ones. For a lot of RVs, kind of like our friends, they didn't have to do anything. They already had an 8-lug hub, so they just put the Bore Wheels straight on. Now, something that I do have on my to-do list is I do want to strengthen the hangers. I'm going to do some welding on the hangers on the RV because I do think there's room for improvement on that for just about all the RVs that we see out there on the road. But I do want to mention again on the sidewall of the Bore Wheels, they are not only shorter, which gives them stiffness. If you look at the profile, if you were to do a cross section on these wheels compared to those wheels, the rubber and the thickness, the material that's all in there is just so strong. You can see that the building standards for those is way different than on here. It's a huge difference in the build quality of these wheels. But that brings us to 2 more points, and really one of the points why we haven't done this upgrade for our 5th wheel. And the number one is the upfront cost in order to do this. It's expensive to swap out your wheels and to swap out your tires all in one fell swoop. We could take these off and try and sell them and to offset a little bit of that cost, but it does add up. But I will say that the life that you get out of the more commercial tire, these higher standard tires and wheels that you're going to put on there, they are going to last longer. So the tires have a 7-year warranty. So usually we don't even like to have our tires be on here past that 5-year mark because the rubber is going to start wearing down on these lesser quality tires. When I called Bore Wheels to ask a couple of questions that I had, they said they recommend replacing them after 10 years. If they've lasted 10 years on your RV, it's time to swap them out. And the tread is going to last much, much longer. It's like I said, a higher grade rubber, and that tread is going to last much longer. Oftentimes they said that people are getting over 100,000 miles off of the tires that they have in their setup there. And also they say that you can retread those tires. So it kind of depends on the age and if you're into doing that, but it is an option to have some of their tires retreaded. Now, another benefit that I've seen claimed, but I'm not able to put any hard numbers to it, is the fuel consumption should get better when you have a better tire that's on there. It's going to have less resistance. The rolling resistance as you're going down the highway is going to be much better. So they're definitely designed for the highway. It doesn't mean that you can't take them off-road on a dirt road. We're not going to be going four-wheel driving in any kind of crazy sense with our fifth wheel, so a tire like that would actually be a really good fit. You can still go on a dirt road, go find that boondocking spot, but if you had a smaller RV that you were wanting to really get back into some really gnarly places, then it probably wouldn't be a tire for you, but you probably wouldn't be looking for this type of an upgrade in that situation. You'd be looking for something a lot more rugged as far as off-road. But if you're looking for a tire that's going to help you have less stress because you are going to have fewer blowouts on a tire like that, these tires are really popular with people that are hauling around horses or livestock and different things like that, where you're going to have a really heavy load, and their blowouts have decreased significantly when switching over to this system. So the less stress, more durability. There's just a lot of benefits for going with bore wheel from my perspective. We might do it someday in the future, but again, it's just that upfront cost that I just can't quite get over at this time. But I hope some of this information helps inform you to let you know what is out there. I think everybody should know what their options are so they can pick what is best for them for their RVing needs. So anyways, I think that's going to do it for today. I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos about RVing, hit that subscribe button. If we don't see you on the road, hopefully we will see you next video.